Meditation is something that I try to do. And when I talk about self-reflection, I talk of time for me to introspect, right? Those should be the same thing. But it can be challenging. It can get very distracting. The moment I get really quiet and say, hey, this is me and myself, or myself and I, so many distracting thoughts start coming into mind. How do you, when you talk on your self-reflection podcast and you try to encourage people to find that time, to find that space to do self-reflection, what are some of the tips that you give them for them to be able to find that space where they can actually just be themselves?
Yeah, I love how you say distracting thoughts. I want to say, like, in my opinion, because I don't know how you feel, but in my opinion, those are not distracting thoughts. Those are the thoughts that are evolving in that moment. The only moment that truly exists is the present. And you know what I'm saying? And if your thoughts are coming from wherever they are, that means those are the thoughts that needed to get processed. And a lot of times when we get into that space, we see those thoughts come in, those distractive thoughts come in. We're like, oh no, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. We start to be like, okay, this is not what I'm here for. But in all essence, that's why you're there. That's why you're there, to allow your brain to process those things. Those thoughts are thoughts that you probably have pushed in the back, and they have been trying to surface themselves so that you can let it go. But because we don't let it go, when we get into that space of meditating, when those thoughts comes in, we're like, oh no, I want to actually be at peace. I want to meditate, and I want to, not think about X, Y, and Z. But those are the things that we need to think about, so that when we're done with that space, we're like, okay, I thought about that. Now I have a solution for it. Right? If it was a problem, let's say a business that you've been trying to do for yourself, and that business idea has been lingering in your mind, and you go to meditate, and all you could feel yourself is business, business. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? That's the space where you say, okay, let those thoughts come in, because from that space you get the answer to that business idea, right? You now say, okay, let's say you wanted to start a clothing business. From that place, right, different type of idea of clothing might come into the mind. Different type of websites might come into the mind. People that you need to reach out to might come into mind, right? But once we start fighting it, all of those things gets pushed aside. The solutions gets pushed aside, because our body, mind, and soul is focusing on the problem instead of focusing on the solution. And that's what meditation kind of brings us into this space where it's okay, whatever comes in the mind, it's okay. I think the body is going to recognize when it's ready to shut down the mind and just be. And there's that little space of gap of emptiness that comes in within that space.
It is not as easy as you say to just let those thoughts,
I
because
just want to say it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of moments where you actually cry. It takes a lot of heavy emotions to come in, and sometimes it's challenging to come in, or it's challenging to just let it go because of our own belief system, right? So it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of unpacking and unlearning, and all of these things that people don't really think about in a day-to-day life. So it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. Doing self-reflection is not easy, and that's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's such a challenging thing to do. But it's definitely doable, and there's a lot of life that comes from that place.